So as a brief FYI, if you did not see the final part of this chapter, next week Taizai will be on break. So don't expect a Taizai chapter to come out because apparently, it's going to be on break. But okay, with that out of the way, let's talk about this chapter. It's a mixed bag. Mixed bag of good and bad. And honestly, I don't really know which side I'm really on. I don't know if I'm on the side to where I'm saying this is a really great chapter, or I'm on the side that says this is a really bad chapter. Somewhere I'm in between. I might get my feelings, sorted out while doing this video, but personally, I don't really know how to feel about this chapter. I like the chapter because I like Taizai, but at the same time, while reading the chapter, there was some things that did happen that kind of irked me a little bit. In some ways, they can be explained, but even then, though, it irks me by how some things were done. So, let's get right into it. Wild. His sacrifice. What happened? So, Wild, he died. Now, before I actually get into the meaning behind his death and all that, can we just take a moment to think about how Nakaba-sensei really loves to kill off animal companions in his series, like Oslo, and then we had the stuff with Hawk a long time ago, and then we have this now with Wild. It's just like, whoa, he does have a track record. He likes doing stuff like that. It's definitely something he's been doing a lot recently, which he did state and come out recently, like, yeah, this is the final arc. We're in the final stretches of Taizai. It's like 1 year left, so obviously characters are going to start dying left and right. That makes sense, but it's just like all these animal characters, all the companions, or these mascot characters, are getting killed off one by one, and are kind of being used as a way to be a cop-out for our main cast of characters don't actually die. That's the way I'm viewing it, but let's get into that. So, Wild. He died. Now, honestly, I'm a little bit sad because I did like where Wild's character was going, but in turn, he pretty much was more of a boorish-looking, Hawk. That's all he was. And I do like how he was and how he was, interacting with Bon and Meliodas. It was a really nice, friendship going on there, chemistry. But even then, though, we didn't really know a whole lot about Wild. For instance, he was recently introduced, like, in the amount of time we've seen him, like, in chapters, I think we only knew him for about maybe 4, maybe 5 chapters at the max. I'm not counting since he was introduced. I'm just saying the chapters he actually was in, and what we really do know about him. We don't really know much about Wild. The only thing we know is that he was in purgatory for 8 million years. He didn't know if his brother Hawk was dead or alive. Obviously, he found out about this through Meliodas and Bon, which gave him new life and wanting to really get out of purgatory. But then on top of that, we didn't really know much else besides that. So besides that, he was really just a blank character. And I feel like the death, more along the lines, if anyone does feel sad about Wild's death, they most likely are sad because Hawk will never get to be able to see his brother. Which that's, I think, what Nakaba-sensei was going for while writing this chapter, was that you're not supposed to feel bad for Wild. You're supposed to feel bad that Hawk will never know the sacrifice that his brother had to make for him. That's what I'm assuming. But regardless, though, I'm not really that attached to Wild. I know many might look at me like I'm cruel or mean or whatever, but I'm not. I'm not really that emotionally attached to Wild. If it was Hawk, that's a different story. At the end of the day, Hawk is still a mascot character, but we've been with him a lot, and we've seen what he's done, what we've been through, and honestly, Taizai wouldn't have gotten as far as it did without Hawk. He kind of saved the day in the first major arc against Hindi. So, if Hawk was to die, I would feel upset. But Wild, different story, different reason entirely. So honestly, I don't really feel that much for the man's death. He was honestly just used as a plot device just to get Meliodas and Bon out of purgatory safely without really having to take down the Demon King, which that's the big thing I want to talk about. The Demon King, as we know of, is pretty much the strongest entity in Taizai, besides the Supreme Goddess and maybe like the Mother of Chaos or whatever. I think the name is Mother of Chaos, I could be wrong there, but you know what I'm talking about if you know about Taizai. But we know about like 3 strong beings, besides probably certain legends and stuff, maybe with the sword, Arthur and all that, and every little other detail maybe with, certain other characters that's been built up behind the scenes. we do at the very least know that the Demon King and the Supreme Goddess are the cause of a lot of issues throughout the world of Taizai. They're the main head honchos. They're effectively, literally gods that govern the world and has caused so much things to happen. And without those two individuals, a lot of the events of Taizai never would have happened in the first place. So obviously, seeing the Demon King square off against Bon and Meliodas, it's fascinating. From a writer's perspective, and seeing it as a reader, it's cool to see one of the strongest beings going up against our characters. And there's been many theories that many have made about the Demon King saying that this might not really be the Demon King. It might just be an apparition, like just a shadow of his former self. Or, you know, maybe this is just the Demon King's soul and this really isn't him, and that's the reason why he wants Meliodas to replace him. You know, there's a lot of things about this that many have thrown out, but it's never really been officially confirmed. We do know that the Demon King is literally one of the strongest beings. That is one thing we could really be certain about. And he has guarded the gate of purgatory to get back to the real world since the very beginning. And he has stopped Meliodas from going back. And Meliodas has never been able to defeat him. Yes, he's been training for thousands upon thousands of years while stuck in purgatory, but it still doesn't change the fact that the man, you know, he was able to stand up and fight against his father like he did in this chapter out of nowhere, which that's the point I want to get at. Many are upset with this chapter because Meliodas was able to legit repel the Demon King's attack like it was nothing. And then when he repelled it, he stood his ground, looking baller, by the way. I love the way he looked, but he stood his ground and he repelled his father's attacks. Now, we do know that Meliodas is obviously hiding some form of power. This is granted. It was even finally established in the last chapter. It's been hinted at for a while, but it was finally stated in the last chapter that yes, Meliodas does have another ability. We don't really know what it is, but whatever it is, it must be really scary and even stronger than the Demon King. Okay, I can live with that. I think many of us can agree something like that has been built up for a while. So that didn't just come out of nowhere like what happened with Diane. Even though she had a reason not to use it, it still didn't come out of nowhere like Diane's did. So seeing what he did in this chapter, I was inclined to believe that maybe it had something to do with his ability. For instance, whatever ability that he's not wanting to use that apparently he's scared of using, I thought that's what he was using to be able to let Bon and Wild get out of purgatory. Which you do see a quick little panel to where you see this aura pop up around Meliodas, which you could assume maybe might be related to his ability that he's been hiding, but we don't really get confirmation whatsoever. So, at the end of the day, we don't really know what that was. It was just, like, from what we could assume, a random power-up, just for Wild would have to sacrifice himself just to allow Meliodas and Bon to get out of purgatory. So, that's the reason why people are a little bit upset, is because it doesn't make sense how someone like Meliodas, that obviously has been established already in purgatory, to be extremely weak. He's just emotions. He's not like the main body Meliodas. He can't really access a whole lot. He's just straight up weak. And, you know, he got one-shotted by, like, a purgatory beast and all this type of stuff, so we do know that the emotional Meliodas is not as strong as what we're used to. So seeing how he was able to stand up to his father like that, I'm like, huh? Like, if this ain't his ability, then where does this come from? Like, what's happening here? Out of all these, you know, hundreds upon hundreds of years or 1,000 years that he's been fighting, you know, the Demon King, he never did this? Like, what the hell? That was the thing. Now, throwing on some of the good to kind of explain this, in my personal opinion, we have to look at from the Demon King not really hating Meliodas. See, he does call emotional Meliodas his son at the beginning of the chapter. Now, he does turn around, basically say you're a failure, and, you know, you're a risk or whatever. He does say that, which does in turn mean that he kind of, like, disowned him. But it's still, the Demon King did say, you are my son. So it shows that he does care about Meliodas deeply, and he even does care about emotional Meliodas to a certain extent. So you could also throw on that he was holding back and not using his full strength against Meliodas. And if you want to go one step further, maybe he actually wants Meliodas to go back to the real world. Maybe he actually, you know, because he's a caring father in his own way, maybe he was just, you know, relented a little bit. And he's like, you know what, I'll let you go. And that could have been what happened. I have no idea. But the point is that it's obvious that the Demon King cares about Meliodas, and he wasn't going all out since the very beginning. He obviously wasn't going all out against, you know, Bon. He had many opportunities to where he probably could have killed them instantly. And as I said in my last chapter review, he probably could easily clean up Bon like it's nothing, because since he's the Demon King, he easily probably could extract Bon's soul and just devour it and the man's done. So the point I'm getting at is the Demon King did not fight seriously, I don't think, really at all in this entire engagement with Meliodas and Bon and Wild. But even then, though, it's still ridiculous that Meliodas was still able to repel the Demon King like that. It doesn't really make sense. It seems like it was just forced to be there for plot reasons, which I feel like in a story writing perspective, it's kind of like Nakama-sensei backed himself into a corner and really didn't know what to do. Because, like I said, the Demon King's been built up for a while. Strongest beings, obviously he can't make the man look like a pushover, because if he does, then it undermines everything that's going on with Meliodas, Assault Mode Meliodas, absorbing 5 commandments. It just undermines all of that, and it undermines, Mel's power and how ridiculous it was. It undermines, Escanor. It undermines, just archangels. It undermines all that. Power scaling just gets a very wonky if, the Demon King was defeated so easy. And seeing Meliodas do like that, it kind of makes it look bad, and that's why people are upset. So, personally, how do I feel about this chapter? I think I'm confused. Like, I'm a little bit mixed. Like, I don't know. I don't really know how to feel about the chapter, because some of these things can be explained from writing. Like, if Nakama clarifies why Meliodas was like he is. Like, if he gives clarification that the Demon King also is holding back, which I think that's obvious in of itself, but even then, though, like, we do need some clarification on some of these things, and I think what it really does come down to is that this little purgatory arc was rushed. I think that's what it really does come down to, though, when I get to the bottom of everything, because when you think about the last arc, or what arc was going on with Mel and all that, and Galther, that was a very long arc, which, don't get me wrong, I thought it was really cool to tackle an issue like that. I actually like that arc. Even though it was dragged a little bit, I do like that arc. But I feel like if we had to sacrifice seeing more of Purgatory for that arc, then honestly, I would rather have sacrificed stuff with, Mel and Galther to see more of Purgatory life with Bon and Meliodas. That's just me. And so I feel like Nakama kind of rushed this arc to get Meliodas and Bon out. But also on top of that, he wrote himself in a corner, not really knowing how to tackle the Demon King in a proper way, because he didn't really know how to handle it. Because the Demon King's supposed to be strong, not someone that you could easily just bring down. So yeah. Anyways, let's get into Bon for a second. So Bon, he gives his infinite life to the Demon King. Now, many are speculating that this could bring up a whole new issue with Bon, and that maybe his infinite life that he assumes he has might not really be infinite after all. If we take a look at everything, we could assume that Bon's basically the Fountain of Youth. That's what we could assume he is. And as we know, when he drunk from the chalice and all that, and basically drunk the Fountain of Youth, he became what he is. He is immortal. So you could kind of say he is the Fountain of Youth now. And so if someone was to, let's say, drink all of, the fluid within him, like blood or whatever, they would probably become immortal, and he would probably die. He would cease to exist. That's what many are starting to speculate after this chapter, with him giving up his life energy so much that him bringing back Elaine might in turn kill him, make Elaine immortal, but either make him mortal or make him die, one or the other, which would be a very interesting story to go with Bon. I would actually be really upset if that kind of happened. But at the same time, I mean, I really don't know. I don't know where Nakama wants to take it, but I feel like the more the story is gearing up, it does seem like he's trying to say Bon won't be immortal forever, because he is broken. I mean, when you look at what he was doing in this chapter and how strong he's gotten, he has gotten really freaking ridiculous. And if you're not a creature that could basically extract his soul out, Bon's pretty much undefeatable. Regardless of how strong you are, all Bon needs to do is just outlive your attacks, or just, endure it until you run out of stamina. Like, example, if Escanor used his Sunshine in the one mode and all that, went all out against Bon would be able to face tank all that. Even though Bon wouldn't be able to physically fight Escanor and bring the man down, if Escanor somehow can't really affect Bon's soul in any way, then that means that Bon would outlast the one mode and then take down Escanor when he is starting to get weaker. So Bon is pretty freaking broken, especially with his new skill set he's got now. So yeah, I think, the more it looks like Nakama-sensei is gearing up for a really big death soon, like for one of our main characters. And I believe it's probably going to either be Bon or it's going to be Hawk. That's what it looks like to me, what it appears to be, because he is definitely gearing up for some form of death soon, or even Escanor, because of just the way the recent pacing of the story has been with all these characters dying or sacrificing themselves. That's pretty much my thoughts on the chapter. Overall, I say the chapter could have been better, but it wasn't the worst I've ever seen. I just wish certain things with Purgatory was handled a little bit differently. I mean, yeah. Let me know your thoughts. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe. If you like this video, please leave a like. And if you want to get notified for whenever I upload a video, please click the bell icon down below. And with that, Chibi out.